I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we're going to talk about tolling. It's an idea that's not as dead as it might have seemed yesterday. Tonight we'll explain what's going to be tolled in the greater Portland area and what's not. We'll also talk about what's on hold for now. And we'll discuss how Oregon's governor is putting the brakes on a big project, even though she really does not have the direct authority to do that. It's all part of our big story tonight. First, let's talk about what's not changing in tolling. The new I-5 bridge across the Columbia River, yeah, that is going to have tolls. Oregon Governor Kotek's announcement yesterday does nothing to change that. So get used to it. The I-5 bridge is going to have tolls. Now, this bridge at Oregon City, the Abernathy Bridge, tolling is, well, let's say it's up in the air. The bridge is being widened and retrofitted for earthquakes to make it stronger. The current cost is roughly $662 million. ODOT has the money in its budget already, but was hoping to put tolls on the bridge to recoup about $385 million, basically paying itself back for the money spent on the bridge and then making that money available for other projects. So, will that bridge be tolled? The answer is maybe. When I asked the governor's office about that today, this is what they had to say. The start date for tolling on the Abernathy Bridge has been moved out to allow time for a legislative conversation about alternative revenue sources in 2025. Should alternatives fail to come forward, the state will either need to resume tolling operations or reallocate nearly $400 million from other projects. Okay, so tolling. Yes, on the I-5 bridge across the Columbia and maybe on the Abernathy Bridge. That's part of 205 in Oregon City. And no, by the way, on sections of I-5 and 205 that stretch from Oregon City north to the Columbia River. That was the big change that was announced yesterday. The governor is shutting down tolling plans for stretches of I-5 and 205. Now, as you can imagine, lots of people care about this and had plenty to say. Let's start down in Clackamas County, which has lobbied hard against tolling the Abernathy Bridge. Commissioner Paul Savas at a board meeting today says, hold on, it's too early to declare victory.
While this is a good start, I'm hoping that there is indeed, the canceling of the I-205 tolling on the Abernathy Bridge and, a means of filling the gap, the funding gap to make that project complete. I am just concerned, again, that the public is misunderstanding this based on the phone calls I received last night, yesterday afternoon, this morning. The message I've been receiving, people are celebrating when in fact what is actually canceled is something that was going to happen long term, way out there. 2, 3, 4, 5 years out is what was canceled. But the immediate issue is before us, it's alive, it's real. And until that's canceled, I'm not prepared to celebrate at all.
Okay, so there's that. Commissioner Martha Schrader seems glad there'll be no tolls on I-205, but also wants money to add lanes to the narrow sections of 205.
I do believe that this is a positive sign, but I also agree with my colleagues that we can't let our guard down. We have to continue to be vigilant. We have to continue to listen to our constituents. And we need to continue to lobby to make sure we get the dollars we need for the critical infrastructure necessary on I-205. That is a main corridor for commerce. It's essential we get those dollars to expand the capacity there.
So as you can see, a lot of concern. Clackamas County's ever so quotable Tootie Smith says the governor made the move because she knows that nobody wants tolling and that polling shows that.
What do you think prompted this? Politically?
A poll.
Politically, though?
Politically, she has the same polling data that I do. In Clackamas County, a statewide poll revealed 92% of the voters hated tolling.
Yeah, and I'd say your emails to us, it's probably 90% hate it. And she blames the Oregon Department of Transportation for being greedy, by the way, and insisting on tolling all the lanes of the interstate instead of creating express toll lanes and then leaving the other lanes at no charge.
ODOT knows exactly what the funding sources are. They chose the most onerous, they chose the most debilitating, they chose to toll all lanes at the same time. And I would submit again Not a jurisdiction in America tolls all lanes at the same time. You look on your phone, there's an app, Avoid Tolls. San Diego, Chicago, Houston, Florida, New York, Washington, D.C. I've been to all those places. Why would ODOT pick a system that's extremely onerous and economically devastating to our citizens of Clackamas County?
I have to say, it sounds like the commissioner's been traveling quite a bit. Also, the mayor of West Lynn, who worries his city will be run over with drivers trying to dodge the tolling on the Abernathy Bridge, hopes that lawmakers will find another way to pay for the bridge.
Our community can't bear the full burden of that tolling project, and Oregon City would say the same, Clackamas County, Lake Oswego, et cetera. So we're hoping to have a funding solution for the bridge that is more region-based or state-based, I would say, since the bridge is so important to commerce.
Okay, so the fight over one segment of tolling is over, but there is plenty more to come. Yesterday's development made me think about the trucking industry, for example. All those semis you see on I-5, well, they're carrying goods either to or from Oregon companies, and they hate how slow I-5 is through the Rose Quarter area. Janet Jarvis is CEO of the Oregon Trucking Association. I gave her a call. She was on the board helping shape what those tolls would look like, and she told me she has mixed emotions about them going away for sections of I-5.
Well, I was a bit surprised to hear the announcement. There's been a lot of discussion about what tolling was going to look like in the Portland metro region, and a lot of dissension over the tolling program as it was being proposed. So in one sense, I wasn't terribly surprised by the announcement. On the other hand, tolling was a significant part of the revenue calculation in House Bill 2017 for some of those mega projects like the Rose Quarter project, which the trucking industry is very interested in seeing addressed. So it leaves us with a bit of a conundrum.
So mixed emotions then, I guess.
I think probably the best way to say it, yes. I mean, we were not huge advocates of the tolling as it was being proposed, but we do recognize that ODOT does not have the necessary funds to build these programs or these projects. And so part of the calculation for us is the efficiency improvement. If you toll a region of the freeway, are you going to get enough efficiency out of the system then to help compensate for that additional cost? And we never got an answer to that question. So it's hard to know exactly what the impact of the tolling would have been.
Still, I took from that conversation, maybe the battle's not over. Now let's get to the question of whether Governor Kotek can wave a magic wand and make tolling stop. No, she technically cannot. There's no law giving her that power. Only the State Transportation Commission can do that. But guess who appoints each member of that commission? Well, yes, it is Governor Kotek. So when she asks them to stop working on tolling for part of I-5 and 205, it comes with the unspoken idea that if they don't agree, they can be unappointed, and others who do agree can take their place. That, my friends, is how high-level politics works. And then finally, what comes next? Well, the governor calls ODOT's budget catastrophic. So what options are on the table to fix that? Two ideas pop out immediately. First, the state could increase the gas tax. Right now, we pay about 40 cents a gallon. It's efficient and it's easy for the state to collect. I'm told the tax is actually collected at the big distributors, not at the gas pump. There are roughly just 12 major distributors in Oregon, so it's easy for ODOT to keep track of what's going on. And if they increase the gas tax, well, you just pay for what you use. The second idea is a tax based on the number of miles that you drive. That also has the advantage of only taxing you when you use the roads. But there's some tricky privacy questions in there. Do we really want to give the state access to our cars or trucks and all the miles that we're driving? Would the tax be monthly? How would they know what to charge us? Lots of questions there, but the state has been studying that option for several years now. So there's a wrap on what's going on with tolling right now. It will definitely continue on the new I-5 bridge. It might continue on I-205 at the Abernathy Bridge in Oregon City. It will not go forward on big sections of I-5 and 205 that were previously planned for tolls. Oregon lawmakers will be talking about how to fund transportation, I think, almost nonstop between now and the next legislative session in early 2025, so not even a year away. And now we want to hear from you. What do you think about the latest tolling developments? Or the ideas on the table to recoup some of that money that tolls were expected to bring in? Maybe you have a better idea for revenue that ODOT should be looking at in the future. Send us an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And while we're talking about tolling and bridges, this month the team working on the new bridge over the Columbia River on I-5 released these new renderings of future crossings. Kind of cool, huh? Gives a better sense of how it's going to look, especially if you're up close. The past renderings were more conceptual and from farther away. These give similar views depending on the eventual design of the bridge, which still has not been solidified, by the way. One thing that I noticed about these, this thing is going to be big. Look at how it looms over Hayden Island and the Vancouver waterfront. Why is it so high? Well, it's because the current bridges have drawbridge sections that allow big ships to pass through, and that allows it to be relatively low to the water. But the design team wants to move away from that and instead have a fixed bridge when they build the new ones. So it has to be high. The design team, as a matter of fact, is aiming for 116 feet above the water. And even that might not be enough to satisfy the Coast Guard. For reference, the bridge now only sits about 32 feet above the water. So yeah, big difference. There is a design with a drawbridge included in the renderings, but that would still be way higher than the current bridge. Overall, a dozen new images are out there for you to go look at yourself. And they give us a view from Vancouver waterfront, Hayden Island, and up on the bridge itself. We're also getting a look at the light rail station, what that could look like on the Vancouver side. The project team published concept images earlier this year to give us some idea. They want to extend the Max Yellow Line across the river and add new stations at Hayden Island, the Vancouver waterfront, and downtown Vancouver. The waterfront station would be right by the end of the bridge, which means it would also have to be very high. Look at all the stairs here. Yeah, a lot of stairs. Something tells me the elevator is going to be pretty popular. Those are all just possibilities, by the way. The final decision will not be made until the project puts out a draft environmental impact statement for the public to review and then finishes the federal environmental review process. The draft is expected sometime this spring. For you Washingtonians out there, your presidential primary election is today. If your ballot's still sitting on the kitchen table, don't panic. You still have a couple hours till 8 p.m. tonight to drop it off in an official drop box. Those ballots were mailed out the week of February, by the way. If you're not registered to vote, you can still do that today, but only in person and only until 8 p.m. tonight. Nationally, President Biden formally won the Democratic nomination this afternoon after Georgia tipped his way. And former President Trump is almost a certain lock as his Republican opponent, a long-expected rematch of the 2020 election. Oregon's primary is not until May 21st. Coming up next on The Story, Oregon's signature climate plan was deemed invalid by a judge who found the DEQ did not follow all the rules during the rulemaking process, of all things. But the DEQ has not given up on that. We'll tell you where the process goes from here when The Story returns. The folks running the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality got to work this week laying out the rules that will govern the state's signature environmental policy, the Climate Protection Plan. If you feel like you've heard that before, you're not wrong. The original Climate Protection Plan was put into place by Governor Kate Brown. It went into effect in 2022. It calls for gradual reductions in greenhouse gas emissions from some of the state's biggest polluters, gas utilities, fuel suppliers, and heavy industry. Some of those folks weren't all that happy about the plan and sued the state to block it, saying that the state did not have the authority to enforce it. The court has yet to rule on that, but a judge did find that the DEQ had not followed all of the rules when it went through the rule-making process the first time around. So the judge said, program's invalid, meaning the DEQ has to start all over again.
It's the process that we go through in order to draft those draft rules and then develop those policies. And then basically we as DEQ staff, we present that to what we call the Environmental Quality Commission. And ultimately the Environmental Quality Commission decides whether or not they adopt something.
So if you didn't do it right, you got to start at square one. The policies that come out of this second process will likely be very similar to the first time around, though there is some room for tweaks.
And then we are also looking at this as an opportunity. You know, we are going to be asking our advisory committee and the public to let us know what things they thought went well, what things didn't go well, where we could improve things. But we are going to be focusing on maintaining the emissions trajectory.
So how long is this all going to take? The DEQ will be holding 3 public meetings over the spring and summer with the goal of presenting the draft rules to the public later this year. If all goes according to plan, they'll present the new rules to the Environmental Quality Commission. Those are the ones who vote on the rules by November. As concerns over our climate grows, more young adults are choosing to pursue environmental sciences as a career path. It is a trend we're seeing in multiple Northwest universities. Meteorologist Leah Pizzetti with our Environment Northwest team shows us the rapid growth.
Conversations about climate are more common than they were even just a few decades ago. And now interest in studying these topics is also on the rise.
University of Washington senior Sarah Hensley knows exactly how she wants to spend her career.
As we all know, climate change is occurring, and I'm really interested in understanding how these changes that we're seeing in our environmental conditions are influencing the biological components of our systems.
A curiosity she's cultivated the last 4 years, diving in from the get-go.
Coming into college, I was really excited about this marine biology degree, and I had looked online and it looked really amazing, but then being there, like in the rain boots with the rain gear on the boat, and being able to partake in the science directly in my first quarter of college, I knew that it was going to be an amazing experience.
That is also something that really draws students to the University of Washington. It's knowing that there is the chance to really study the science.
Julie Parrish is the College of Environment's first and only Associate Dean of Academics, a role she started when the college was created about 15 years ago. This program has flourished in that time.
Even over the last 4 years, the undergraduate population has increased by 50%. So the growth has been explosive.
It's not just UW's 50% growth. Washington State University's School of Environment has grown by 23% in the last 5 years, adding on about 100 undergraduate students. Oregon State's degree has increased 61%, adding on nearly 300 undergraduate students. The University of Idaho's undergraduate enrollment hasn't changed, but PhD and master's students have grown 106% in the last 5 years. Julie says she hears a common goal among these students.
Obviously, one is saving the world, right? And with today's climate problems, global warming, it's something that we hear about every day in the news. There's just a lot of weight on the shoulders of the students coming into college today to try and fix things that their elders are responsible for.
An energy Sarah says she feels and hopes to lean into, feeling optimistic.
The more we understand about these issues and the more research that comes out on these issues, the more we can facilitate these conversations, I think. And so ultimately, I think the younger generation has tremendous potential to drive us in this kind of direction that allows us to address these issues.
For Environment Northwest, I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
Great to see the younger generation getting involved. Coming up next on The Story, we're digging for old and remembering this icon, the one and only Gert Boyle. She would have turned 100 years old this month, and during a recent tour of the Historical Society's secret vault, we got to see something her family donated that's sure to bring a smile to your face and maybe some memories of your own. That's coming up next when The Story returns. The KGW Great Food Drive is going on right now. Last year, Oregon Food Bank distributed 87 million meals. We want to collect enough donations to provide over 1 million meals to local families in need. You can help out by giving online at kgw.com/food drive. And all this week, local Toyota dealers will match the first $10,000 donated. We also want to thank Rivermark Credit Union, Pacific Office Automation, and Safeway for helping us make this year's drive such a success. Yeah, I know it's not Monday, but we had a full show yesterday, so we couldn't help but bring you this Digging for Old today. On last week's Digging for Old, we highlighted the birthday of an Oregonian giant in the world of tennis, Margaret Osborne DuPont. And after a visit to the Oregon Historical Society's vault last week, where they keep thousands of incredible items that are not currently on display, well, we were reminded of another big milestone that happened earlier this month. March 6th would have been the 100th birthday of none other than Gert Boyle. When she was a little girl, she escaped Nazi Germany and moved with her family to Portland. She led Columbia Sportswear starting in 1970 after her husband's sudden death. At the time, she was 46 years old, A housewife with no business experience. Didn't matter. She turned Columbia into a global brand as it is today. Gert Boyle passed away in 2019 at the age of 95, but her famous sense of humor lives on through an item of hers and her family donated to the Oregon Historical Society. We'll let Executive Director Carrie Timchuk explain.
And one of the items she gave to us, with much glee she gave it to us, was she had one of these, for lack of a better term, I'll call it a fat jiggler. They were very big back in the late 50s, early 1960s, kind of the first piece of exercise equipment. Not that there was really any exercise that went along with it, and you would, put this over you, strap it somehow to your stomach area, turn it on, and then allegedly the vibrations would cause you to get tight abs. Whether it worked, I don't know. But she, a great item that she gave us for our collection, and here it is. And one tough mother, Gert Boyle, gave this to us. So.
I think that's awesome. Anyone out there remember those jiggler machines? I think my grandmother had one in the Dalles. We're told that Gert did indeed use it, right on brand for her personality. She certainly missed one tough mother. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. It just goes on, and we always get back together to talk about it. The good stuff is coming up next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.